Hi, friends, and welcome to another completely scattershot edition of Socially Distant. And because, well, pickings are pretty slim, I'm Brian Noonan. Well, it is Friday in the world of pandemic. Yes, COVID-19 continues despite some evidence and belief to the contrary. People are still cramming in places without masks. Yes, I'm looking at you, Michigan Trump rally. I'm looking at you, boaters on the lake in Bloomington, Indiana, college students everywhere, and just humans in general. So it's Friday. It's supposed to be Fun Friday, right? Not really a fun Friday yet. That can all change. Let's address the biggest reason that this is not a fun Friday. It is the 19th anniversary, I guess, is the right word, but it's been 19 years since the worst terrorist attack on American soil, the Twin Towers, taking down the Pentagon and the field in Pennsylvania, the thousands of lives that were lost that day. And I'm seeing all over social media and everywhere else people saying never forget. I don't know if you can forget. If you were around then, if you were alive then and old enough to know what was going on, you will never forget. It's like people who, I wasn't around when Pearl Harbor happened, but I remember December 7th, just not as vividly as people who lived through it. So yes, young people will study about 9/11, they will read about 9/11, they'll know about 9/11, but unless you were actually there or actually lived through it, you can't. And while most of us, thankfully, did not know people who were directly involved, who lost their lives in that attack, somehow the entire country felt it. And it's a horrible remembrance. I won't bore you with the entire story, but we were living in California at the time. We received a call very early in the morning from my sister-in-law who was living on the East Coast, and she told my wife, hey, turn on the TV, something's going on. And my wife at that point worked in downtown Los Angeles. She left. Our daughter was in kindergarten, so I was getting her ready for school as I watched on TV what was going on. My wife got about halfway to work, and like in many major cities, she was told to go home. She worked in a high-rise right in downtown Los Angeles. Nobody knew what was going on. Everybody was worried that every major city now was going to be a target, so she was sent home. I remember, like I'm sure you do, watching TV all day, listening to the radio, trying to get any updates, trying to find out what was going on. And I don't care who you are, the visuals of watching the towers come down are never going to go away. So yes, I remember on 9/11 what happened. I know you do as well. As I'm recording this is about the time that the second tower fell. It's something that none of us will ever forget. If you ever get a chance to go to Manhattan and go to Ground Zero, the monument there is unbelievably somber. Do me a favor, though. Don't be one of those idiots who are taking selfies at the 9/11 memorial at Ground Zero, because you look like an ass. It's not, it's not big gay ice cream. You don't take a picture out front and go, hey, look where I was. Nah, just go and remember. So take a minute today and think about that. And what I really am thinking about now, after the initial memories of what happened and the tragedy that day, is the aftermath of that and what happened to this country, where suddenly we were all united. It didn't matter what party you were. It didn't matter where you lived. Nobody was saying, that's just New York, or that's just Washington, D.C., or that's just some field in Pennsylvania. Suddenly, it didn't matter. And I know this sounds pie in the sky and very, oh, isn't that lovely? But we were all together. We were united against something. That's why it's so confusing for me to see that a public health crisis like the COVID-19 pandemic has, instead of bringing us together, has really deepened the divide. There's a lot of people who, for whatever reason, are not either believing that the virus is real, not trying to do anything to help mitigate it, even the most minor thing like wearing a mask. There's no leadership from the top, no cohesive plan to bring us together. I don't want to get real political because it is Friday and this is not really the forum, but let's be honest. Tapes came out this week that said the man at the top, the president, knew about this, but didn't want to panic anybody. That's his excuse. I didn't want to tell you the truth because I didn't want to panic you. That makes absolutely no sense. And if you're buying that BS, you really need to think about it a little more. Put it in other scenarios. If there was an attack coming to America, would you not tell people because you didn't want them to panic? Or would you tell them so that they could prepare and do the best they could? And maybe we could all work together to try to knock that thing out. Doesn't make any sense. Anyway, there's a lot going on. It's hard to sometimes shake it. It's hard to look past all the lies and the BS that's coming out. It's hard to look past partisan politics and remember a time 19 years ago when we all acted as one. And we were proud of this country, we were proud of each other, and we did whatever we could to help. And as silly as that sounds, I'd like to get back to that. All right, now enough of the somber tone, because I know you're looking at me going, hey, Brian, you're looking fairly dapper. And hopefully you've made it to this point. Because I know at some point you're like, oh man, I didn't tune in here for serious stuff. I want to hear some funny jams. Well, look at that. Here's a story coming. I got a haircut. That's right. After 6 months, the pompadour is no more. I got to be honest, we were in New Orleans, as you remember from my last post, and I was being hair shamed by my daughter, nonstop. I drove 13 hours. Well, I did all the driving, but my wife and I arrived in New Orleans last week, and I began getting hair shamed by my daughter the minute she saw me. Got out of the car, she's like, what's going on with your hair? I'm like, you saw me a month ago. It's not, it's not that much different. All weekend, I had to endure comments about my hair, despite the fact that when it was down to here, I was able to shake it and get a nice flowing lock look. It was very, very exciting. Finally, it got to a point where I could take it no longer, and it was Sunday, right after I posted. So the last post of Socially Distant, when I was sitting outside in New Orleans, I still had my long flowing locks. Excuse me. My daughter had been harping on me, and so there was a salon literally right across the street from her house. And I said, there's absolutely no way they're going to be open on Sunday or Monday because it's a holiday weekend. And she said, oh no, I'm sure they're open. And I see the staff going in there every morning, and they're wearing masks, and everybody seems to be being very careful, and blah, blah, blah. So I call it Paris Parker on Magazine Street in New Orleans. If you're ever in New Orleans, go to Paris Parker, mention my name. It'll do you absolutely no good. I decided I'd go for a walk. I was going to walk down to the Winn-Dixie to pick up some beer. And I thought, all right, let me see if this Paris Parker joint is open. I walk by, yes, it is in fact open. I see people in there working. So I walk down a couple more storefronts, duck in, and I call. And they said, oh yes. After I asked if they do men's haircuts, oh yes, we have an opening with Amy at 3 or 4 o'clock. I said, well, let me do 3 o'clock. Let me go see Amy. What's she going to do? I wish she could stay with you for a while, maybe longer if she could. But I go in. Now, I walk to Winn-Dixie. They didn't have the beer. I record Socially Distanced. I go back to my daughter's apartment, and I walk in, and I proudly announce, hey, jerks, I'm going to get a haircut. My wife and daughter were speechless. So I changed, because you got to look presentable when you're going to meet Amy at the Paris Parker Salon. I go over, I walk in, I had my mask on, big signs all over, you got to have your mask on. And they had a woman waiting at the door, and she was welcoming people. But there were no other people in there. But she was making sure things went smoothly. So she took my temperature, fine. She entered it in their database. She asked me if I had been around anybody who was sick, blah, blah, blah. I said no. And then Amy emerged. And she sat me in her chair, and she said, all right. She just looked, and she said, so what's the problem with your hair? And I said, where do I begin, Amy? I look like Patrick Stewart in Patrick Stewart. I look like Patrick Swayze in Roadhouse. That's the problem. I have a mullet. And she actually used the term mullet as well. Long story short, she tells me what she thinks she's going to do. I explain to her, I've had a crew cut for 30 years. I don't know what's going on. She takes me back. This is something my old-timey barber doesn't do. Shampoo, scalp massage. Oh my goodness, I'm falling in love with Amy. Then we go out. She put clips in my hair. I looked like Pippi Longstocking. It was insanity. And then to make it all perfect, she said, I'm going to give you a men's back. So I have a men's back on my hair. I don't think you can see it. She took off over 3 inches of hair, styled it up. I put in a little product to make it look dapper, Dan, and there we go. So I am cleanly shorn. I walked out, and you can see my daughter's porch from the store, or from the salon doorway, and my wife was sitting outside with our grand puppy, Walter. Oh, that's a story for another time. Little Walter, 10-pound dog, thinks he's a 100-pound dog, thinks he rules the roost, and he definitely does. He's a spoiled little monkey, but he's a fun dog. But I see my wife sitting in the rocking chair, very grandmotherly, with the dog in her arm, much like a baby. And I hear her saying, "Oh, Walter, here comes Grandpa. Grandpa got a haircut. Doesn't he look pretty, Walter? Blah, blah, blah." And I walked up, and suddenly, the hair shaming ended. My daughter told me I looked good. My wife told me I looked good. Amy told me I looked good. I don't know if anybody else in New Orleans cared. I didn't really go out. We were definitely doing the shelter in place in New Orleans, except to go get some food. But that is that. All right, there's the story. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. It's Friday. We're off to go pick apples now. Yeah, how do you like them apples? Our yearly trip to the orchard to get some Honey Crisps and apple cider donuts. So we are off to do that right now. I hope you have a lovely weekend. Take a minute today to tell somebody that you love them, because as we learned 19 years ago, and the lesson is repeated every day, you never know how long people are going to be around. So take a minute, appreciate the people you're around. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Do something fun, because I know it's going to be getting cold soon, and then we're all going to be back in the house, and it's going to be insanity. So until next time, stay safe, stay masked up, stay grateful. And as always, stay socially distant. Bye-bye.